How's it going, folks? Stu here. This year we are blessed with a new film from my favorite director's name to say, Darren Aronofsky. Just every time, Darren Aronofsky. It's just fun. I wish that fun translated into your films though, Darren, because you son of a bitch. So The Whale is the latest film from Darren Aronofsky. It's an adaptation of Samuel D. Hunter's stage play of the same name, who also returns to write the screenplay here. And it is a story of a reclusive English teacher who is struggling with the consequences of his excessive weight gain over the past however many years. It stars Brendan Fraser here in the lead, alongside a great cast of people like Sadie Sink, Hong Chow, Samantha Morton, Ty Simpkins. And let's get one thing straight out the bat here. This film has been getting a lot of buzz from everywhere it's been showing, mainly for its performances, but as a whole it's been, you know, snowballing a lot from its film festival buzz, and it did not disappoint. This film packs such a huge emotional punch. It is one that's going to sit with you for a long time. Let's talk firstly about Brendan Fraser's lead role here, because it is the thing that you're going to be hearing the most about from this film, because the guy absolutely crushes it. And I think the acclaim that he's been gaining for this performance is in no small part due to the fact that he is Brendan Fraser himself and what he's been through as an actor over the last few decades, being a big leading man back in the day, to the horrible stuff that happened with him. We won't get into it, but it's so great to see him back with a performance which allows him to really shine as an actor and do his best work as an actor yet. This is a role which feels very intentionally cast and uses Brendan Fraser's sort of status as an actor and what we know from him as an actor to really propel it. The prosthetics on him are phenomenal. That's its own part of the film in itself. But often with a lot of these really transformative turns from actors, which see them in a lot of prosthetics, really very visually different to what we expect from them, there is sometimes that feeling like it's coasting on the fact that they look different to what we know them to look like. I can't count the amount of times we've seen actors go up for some of the big awards in the year and you just think, you just had good prosthetics and were doing a fine job. Brendan Fraser's performance here is so much more than just prosthetics, right? He brings so much emotional weight to this role and has this incredibly gentle touch, which I think is essential for this character and is one of the reasons why this character feels so effective on screen for us. There's so much emotion underneath those eyes in this film that adds so much weight to even the smallest little lines in here, and I think there isn't a word spoken by Fraser that didn't feel wholly lived in, and a lot of that comes down to how well this guy acts with his eyes. He's honestly astonishing. We need to give him the awards already. There's no point having an awards season for Best Actor. Just give it to him. You'll hear a lot about that performance, but for my money, one of the strongest performances in the film that really surprised me, that I think we should all be giving a lot of love to as well, is Hong Chow, who plays his caregiver in the film. She as well brings this genuine sort of warmth and earnestness to that character. And her character sits as well in this really emotionally complex space of caring for someone and helping someone whilst knowing that that person is destroying themselves, really. And I found her turn as a caregiver one of the more moving and affecting aspects of the film. She's so good. But I think it helps as well that the film they're in, the screenplay here from Samuel D. Hunter and the direction from Darren Aronofsky allows these characters and these performers to really pull out the very human emotions of these characters. It's definitely one of those pieces which allows the performers to really capture great stuff within the space. And I think a result of that is that some people might find this to feel quite stagey. I think it's often quite an easy criticism to level at a film, especially when you know that it's based off of a stage play. But I actually think that the staginess of this film is something which Darren Aronofsky is playing with really interestingly, really effectively. Darren Aronofsky hasn't moved this outside of this one location set piece, right? It takes place in this one room, really, and characters come in and out of that space and come in and out of the character's life. And there's some really great visual ways that Darren Aronofsky weaves that into the film as well. I love the way that every character that comes into this room and, you know, thematically that comes into the emotional space of this film, they come past this window by the sink, which is covered by a curtain. So we get people's shadows and we're told that they're coming into the film, right? In the same way that I suppose we're signposted that people come onto stages, and it creates this feeling of this room that Charlie, the English teacher, is a recluse in. This room becomes a stage itself, which Darren Aronofsky, being the filmmaker he is so interestingly and effectively able to weave into this idea of a character starting to make amends for things that he's done in his life. It really adds to this feeling of almost suffocation, which I think goes in line with the emotional path of Charlie in the film. And I really loved Samuel Hunter's screenplay here in the way that it starts to weave in beats of the characters into Charlie's life, and it starts to piece together the things about this character that make it so complex in an emotional sense, but also that make it so affecting in an emotional sense. I think it very sensitively handles the idea of humans' ability to self-destruct, I suppose, in a way, and do things which they know are wrong for them and that they know aren't going to bring them the satisfaction they want, but are the only way that they can cope in those specific situations. I do think that it takes a little while to really click with where it's going, and it wasn't until the latter act of this thing that I started to really appreciate and understand exactly what it is that Samuel D. Hunter's trying to say here in his screenplay, and that Aronofsky's trying to get out of that screenplay as a director. Until you get to that point, there is this sort of feeling that it's spinning its wheels a little bit, and that characters are sort of doing and saying things which might sometimes feel a little bit one note. The biggest culprit of that, I think, for me is Sadie Sink as a daughter. I think she's really good here, and I think the character is really effective in the film, and where it ends up going and what it ends up doing, I think is really essential and works for the film. But for a little while of this film, it did sort of feel like she pops up and is saying things and doing things that are incredibly pointed. And I think, again, that's where that whole stagey element does sort of feel like it begins to threaten to let things down here. But I think that is by design. I think that's intentional. And I think having a performance like Brendan Fraser's at this film, at the helm of it, really helps to steer things through this film. And where it ends up going and what it ends up folding into the mix really solidify the things that happened before it in the film. The result of that is that I think this film is probably going to play better on rewatch. But then the other side of that is that I don't necessarily want to go and jump back into this film immediately, because it does pack such an emotional punch towards the end of it. And it's definitely a film which is getting better as I think about it. I really am interested to see the stage play that it's based on, and to have seen how that compares, because I'm convinced that there are certain things that Aronofsky is intentionally keeping quite stagey in here. But what about you guys? Have you caught the whale? Did you see it at the film festival? Have you seen it elsewhere? Let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below, and we'll have a little chat. I'd love to know where it stands in your Aronofsky film rankings, and whether or not you think Brendan Fraser's just gonna get the Oscar. He is, isn't he? You can also find links for my socials down there, my letterboxd. Follow me over there for all of my up-to-date thoughts on films. I will, of course, see you guys soon for some more thoughts on more films, but until next time, can we get Brendan Fraser a hug? I feel like that's a theme of this year's film festival. Just actors needing hugs. I'll just stand there. I'll give them out for free. I don't care.